Hi guys, my name is Sanjay Gupta. I'm a consultant cardiologist in New York, and the last few days have been pretty hectic, as you probably realize. I've made lots of friends, I've had lots of questions, and I'm really struggling to try and answer everything. So I'm really sorry if I haven't been able to answer. I will promise to try and answer all your questions, but I just need a little bit of time to get through them all, and I've been pretty busy at work, apologies, but I will get to all your questions and try and answer them in due course. I wanted to particularly say thank you to Michael Little. Thank you, Michael, for all your support and for all the nice words. And you're a very kind man, and I appreciate it. So, today I wanted to do a little video on the subject of inflammation. And when I mentioned this, there was a little bit of hoo-ha because people were worried that it would be a very scary blog. It shouldn't be. I'm not going to say anything which is particularly scary, but I do hope that it will help you understand things a bit better. And I hope it will allow you, it'll give you some insight into why things happen and how to get things better. And that can also include having palpitations and ectopic beats. So let's get started. The first thing is, what is inflammation? Okay, inflammation is the body's attempt at self-protection to remove something that is harmful or irritating the body. Okay, and by doing so, the body then heals. And it is part of the body's immune response. So you put something that irritates the body will respond with inflammation, okay, because it needs to get rid or protect itself from that harmful thing that you've put inside it. So the first stage will then be irritation. The body gets irritated. Then you start developing the inflammation. Then there is the healing part of it. It is important to remember that there are two types of inflammation. There is acute inflammation, and then there is chronic inflammation. Acute inflammation starts very rapidly and quickly becomes severe. Chronic inflammation, this is long-term inflammation. It can last for several months or years. It's very much at a lower level than acute inflammation. It stays below the radar, but it continues for many years. Okay, so if I drop boiling water on my hand, you know what will happen. It'll cause pain. My skin will go red. It will swell up. It will. There may be some pus that comes out, and then eventually it will start healing by scar formation. That is acute inflammation. Chronic inflammation is a little bit more like arthritis. People who have arthritis, it's not as painful as having hot water dropped on you, boiling water dropped on you, but it is more chronic, more annoying, more indolent. Okay, so now let's see what happens. So when we put things inside us that irritate our bodies, we start getting inflamed. The problem is that initially the inflammation is a response to healing, but it has to do the healing by releasing certain hormones and causing certain electrolyte changes, etc. In acute inflammation, this can be very helpful. But if you're doing it all the time because of chronic inflammation, then this can be harmful. Okay, so what kind of things does chronic inflammation result in? It increases the amount of cortisol that is released in the body. Cortisol is the major stress hormone. Okay, cortisol makes the heart work harder. The heart beat goes up. Similarly, it also causes release of adrenaline. And adrenaline also makes the heart work harder. It also causes constriction or tightening of the blood vessels. And whilst this is okay for a short time, if you're constantly producing a little bit of more cortisol all the time, a little bit more adrenaline all the time, then the effects that these hormones have um, persist and can cause damage rather than benefit, and the damage is over a long-term period. So um, so let's see what kind of things cause, what kind of things do we put inside us that could cause inflammation, chronic inflammation, because most of chronic inflammation is due to lifestyle issues. Okay, so the kind of things that can cause inflammation include your diet. Okay, we don't really know what we eat, and even though we try very hard to eat healthy, and particularly I'm sure that a lot of you guys, because you're concerned about your health, you are very yeah, tuned in to your health, do try and eat healthy. But remember, we really don't know what is put in our food. Okay, the first thing to say is that the food, say you go and buy carrots in a supermarket, and you may think, okay, well, that's healthy food. You know, I've bought some nice looking carrots and I'm going to cook them, and that's healthy food. But we don't know what was put in the soil when those carrots were grown. We do know that a lot of, you know, that most farming, you know, you're trying to do as much as you can as quickly as you can. So whereas the carrots needed to be grown in a certain amount of land, you know, land enough for 10 carrots, 100 carrots are grown there. Stuff is put into the soil to try and make the carrots grow quicker. Then what happens is that someone will come and they will throw away the ugly looking carrots, and they only want the beautiful looking carrots. And eventually those beautiful looking carrots end up in a supermarket, and God knows what they're sprayed with to try and keep them looking fresh for a while. And then eventually they come home and we eat them. And we think we've eaten healthy, but we really don't know. And I'm pretty confident that this is the chemicals, the preservatives, the processing, all that kind of stuff eventually finds its way into our bodies through our food. And that causes irritation within the body. And because of the irritation within the body, we become inflamed. Okay, we don't realize we're inflamed because when we look around us, everyone looks like us, but they're all doing the same thing. But there is no doubt that we are seeing new diseases now that we didn't see several years ago. So things like peanut allergy. You know, when I was a young boy, this was unheard of. Now it's so common. And this is all undoubtedly because of the kind of food we're eating, the kind of lifestyle we're living. So it is really important to bear in mind that, you know, what you eat can cause inflammation. Now, similarly, with things like what we drink, you know, we drink carbonated drinks, we drink sodas, we drink excessive amounts of caffeine, and these are all things that cause increased inflammation within our bodies. What about things like stress? Everyone I know is stressed. Everyone is in the rat race trying to make a life for themselves. And stress is a huge inflammatory agent. You know, it creates inflammation within the body. We know that. We know that because if you are stressed over a period of time, you fall ill. If you eat bad food over a period of time, you fall ill. You know, so we know that these are bad things for the body, but because we're not hit with them at one go, we don't notice it as much. But the truth is, we're all getting more and more inflamed. Another thing, lack of sleep. You know, insomnia is so common these days. Sleep apnea is really common. So if you don't sleep, how inflammatory must that be to the body if you're not sleeping well? And again, we see this all the time. You know, people who should be getting 7-8 hours of sleep are getting 4-5 hours of sleep. Of course, their stress hormones go up. We know lack of sleep is bad. We don't need a study to tell us that. But lack of sleep is hugely inflammatory. A sedentary lifestyle is hugely inflammatory. Anxiety and depression, and these are hugely inflammatory things. If you have an infection, or if you're in chronic pain, reflux, that's inflammatory because you're always in pain. Your body is fighting against each other. Your body is fighting, and that's why you're getting the pain. You're getting all this acid burning against your own, inflaming your insides. Now, what happens when all this happens? What happens is your cortisol goes up, your adrenaline goes up. Okay, the adrenaline will increase your heart rate. The cortisol causes you to lose magnesium, so you start excreting magnesium, and that causes electrolyte imbalances, and that increases your palpitation. Similarly, we also know that when you're chronically inflamed, your heart arteries, or all your arteries, get hardened, and it's almost like a crust forms. Then you have another hit for whatever reason. So, we're chronically inflamed, and then we get another hit. So, for example, a marital breakup or something like that. And that's a huge hit. And that's like someone taking a fingernail and rubbing that crust off. And what happens at that point is the body then responds to that by forming a blood clot. And the blood clot then blocks the artery. And that's how people have heart attacks. So, it's really important to be conscious of how inflamed we all are. And whenever you are thinking in your mind, why is this happening to me? Try and think of yourself as, well, how inflamed am I? How do I feel like someone who is hot because I'm so inflamed? And look at your diet, look at your stress levels. Try and do those things that will cool you down, will reduce your inflammatory levels. I'll tell you what will cool you down. Number one, eating good, healthy, fresh food. Good food is very anti-inflammatory, and people talk about this thing called the anti-inflammatory diet. Drinking water rather than caffeine and Coke and Red Bull and carbonated drinks. Just drinking simple water is really good. Other things that they say in terms of, and you'll find that a lot of the things I tell you which cause inflammation probably also bring on your ectopics. You'll know that, so here we go. Let me tell you a few other things that can cause, I was just going to bring this up. Here we go. Yeah. High glycemic load, a lot of sugar, saturated fatty acids, caffeine, alcohol in excess, an insufficient intake of micronutrients and antioxidants because antioxidants are anti-inflammatory, a low fiber diet, a sedentary lifestyle, being overweight. And so what you want to do to try and get rid of it are try and eat, a low glycemic diet. Try and eliminate fats and minimize the intake of saturated fats and aspartame, MSG, eliminate caffeine, reduce the amount of alcohol you drink, improve the consumption of whole plant foods such as, nuts and seeds and beans, increase the amount of omega-3 fatty acids you take. So that's diet. Exercise. Regular cardiovascular exercise, nothing too extreme, is one of the best things to reduce your inflammation level and how inflamed you are. And this is well worth doing. Okay, getting more sleep is incredibly important. I tell you other things that are really important. Spending time with your family is really important because that actually gives you a feeling of well-being, or not family but loved ones. Another thing that's important, which is anti-inflammatory, is going on a vacation, going away from it all. Who doesn't feel better when you go away on a vacation? We know it's an anti-inflammatory thing. Another thing that's really good is being out in the sun. When the sun is out, you get this feeling of well-being. So I'm not trying to sell any product here or anything else. I'm just saying these are common sense things. You will notice undoubtedly that those things that are inflammatory will cause your ectopics to get worse. Those people who also have heart attacks are the people who are the most inflamed. And as soon as you lower the inflammation levels, you feel better, the ectopics will get less, your chances of having heart attacks will be less, and on the whole, you will feel so much better. So think of yourself not as, you know, I have this condition or I have that condition. Think of yourself as, how inflamed do I feel? Then there are these chronic conditions. Someone on Facebook was talking about ankylosing spondylitis, which is an inflammatory condition. And they say, well, what's the link between ankylosing spondylitis and ectopics? And I can guarantee that when the ankylosing spondylitis gets worse, the ectopics get worse, because ankylosing spondylitis is an inflammatory condition, and therefore it is more likely to cause inflammation. And the inflammation will cause cortisol levels to go up. You will get a magnesium deficiency. You will get more ectopics. So just bear that in mind. There was also another thing that was published, which was quite interesting, was when someone looked at the relationship between dental hygiene and, you know, bacteria in the mouth and heart disease. And again, if you have any part of your body which is chronically inflamed, try and work on that and get that sorted, because undoubtedly that inflammation is not going to be good for you. Similarly with reflux, we know reflux is inflammatory. Treating the reflux gets the palpitations better. It's well proven in the literature. So well worth thinking about that in mind. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. I hope you enjoyed this. It wasn't as bad as might have come across initially. So I just wanted to say thank you. I will try and answer your questions. But if you need to get in touch with me, you can do so on my website. My long-suffering secretary, Jeanette, poor thing, is on the number below, so you can contact her if you want to speak to me. I'm also on Twitter, and I'm also on Facebook. As I say, some people have sent me lots of messages on Facebook, and I will try and answer them. But if you really, really want me to make contact with me, you can do so via Jeanette or via my website, which will give you the option of getting in touch with me over the phone. So that's all I wanted to say. I wish you all the best, and thank you so much for all your support, and enjoying this. Bye.